Hello and welcome to the last event in the Advice and Perspective series this summer with Shanyelle Young, class of 1992. We're so glad you could all join us today. So we will get started now. So my name is Aaliyah Castleberry. I'm a career coach within the Center for Career Development, and I focus specifically on the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And I'm here with my colleague, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Famularo. I use she, her pronouns, and I am also a career coach in the Center for Career Development with a focus on the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I'll be here in the background of the event today, so if you need any tech support, just send me a message, and I'm happy to help you out.
Yes, thank you. So this event is a part of the Advice and Perspective series, which is an opportunity for UConn alumni to share lessons they have learned since graduating with current UConn students. All the events in this series this summer have been featuring Black alumni to share their advice and perspective on navigating the process of setting and achieving career goals as Black professionals. All the panelists in this series hold undergraduate degrees from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. So we'll begin our event with a fireside chat style. So Shanyelle and myself will be having a conversation for about the first half or so, and then we'll turn it over to a 20-minute Q&A with you all. So please feel free to utilize the chat utilize the chat while we're speaking to submit your questions, and then we'll be sure to address those at the end. This session will be recorded, so please continuously submitting those questions, but this session will be available via YouTube shortly after the event. So without further ado, we will begin. So thank you so much for joining us today, Shanyelle. Will you be able to tell us a bit about yourself and your career journey?
Sure. Thank Aaliyah and Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So yeah, just as far as myself, well, right now I'm currently the broker and owner of Young Realty and Associates. So I've been a realtor now for almost 20 years. It was in 2016 when I decided to open my own real estate company, Young Realty and Associates. And we are currently located in Manchester, Connecticut. So I started with one realtor, and now we are a team of 8 women and completely diverse in terms of race, ethnicity, age. One of my realtors is a transgender woman, and I'm just so super proud of that diversity. So in Connecticut, it's a very unique status. Well, I guess in a lot of places, but mostly in our state too. It's a very unique status to be culturally and racially diverse, to be a culturally and racially diverse real estate team. Or firm, especially with a Black woman, a Black or brown woman at the broker owner level. So many of my counterparts are actually white male. So that's been interesting navigating that. It's actually been, has its ups and downs, but for the most part, it's been a lot of fun. And like I said, I'm super proud of my team. They're an awesome group of women. They work very hard. They bring their diversity, uniqueness to the table every day, and they're just doing a really amazing job. So I started my career actually at Allstate Insurance in Farmington, Connecticut. I was an auto and homeowner underwriter, I should say, for property and casualty, Allstate. So I was on the fast track for management training. It was a program where you worked in different departments for 2 years. And then after 2 years, you were slated for management and some kind of leadership role. So I started Allstate right after UConn. And I was so young and just so ambitious and driven. And you couldn't tell me that I was not going to be like a CEO or some kind of divisional director or running the whole company of Allstate, because that's how I thought in my mind, or somewhere in Europe, like running some major international company. So, however, I got married at 23, right out of college, and it was right after I actually started my program at Allstate. And then I immediately got pregnant with twins. So I had planned to go back to work, but after having my kids, I just decided that I really wanted to stay at home and be with my kids. So that lasted about 7 years. And then when I went back to work, I just started real estate. So that's how I got here to real estate.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I think it's, sorry, someone unmuted. Are we good? Okay, sorry about that. So I think that's really inspiring that you have such a diverse team of realtors. I think that's definitely important in the industry that you're in. As you mentioned, it's very much white male dominated. And I think before you mentioned that 100% of your customer or your clients, do you call them clients?
Customers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are from referrals. So I think that definitely speaks to the prestige of your work and the value of having a team as strong as yours. So you mentioned when you were working at Allstate, you envisioned yourself running the company one day. Where did you gather up that confidence and that sure within yourself?
Well, just, a lot of that comes within, just being pretty comfortable in your own skin. But also, a lot of it just comes from putting yourself out there and trying new things, failing at a few things, but really putting yourself out there. And when you're so young, a couple things are going to happen. Either you're going to be really shy and nervous to network, or you're going to be like, you know what, I got this. And, I spent my whole last 12 years, actually what, 12, 13, 16 years in school to do something great. So either it's going to happen for me or it's not. So, I just really pushed myself, and I wrote goals. I wrote a lot of goals. I know that's one of our topics today. And I surrounded myself, my peers were very driven. I mean, we were all just, it's probably about 6 of us, and we're all still best friends to this day. As you said, I graduated in 92, so that's like an amazing feat in itself. But we pushed ourselves, and we were all Black and brown women, and we just knew how hard it was. So we looked around, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like us. So we kind of made our own little support groups. So.
Yeah, I think that definitely speaks to like your strength as an individual too. The fact that you were like, I'm just starting out, but I'm going to run this company one day. But absolutely can see what you say when you mention that it comes from within. It comes from having a strong network of people around you, and that is so important to keep you going, especially in moments where you don't feel super confident. You have those women around you to kind of lift you up and to remind you exactly who you are. But you mentioned you started getting into a little bit of our topic. So why did you choose to focus on goal setting and pivoting as the topic of our conversation today?
Well, because they are really two topics that are in such conflict with each other, at least from my perspective. So one involves planning out the trajectory of your future, and the other one usually pivot means something has like suddenly and drastically, unexpectedly changed. And sometimes, actually most times, that's just how life goes. So I thought that was important because we plan things and we plan things, and sometimes it just doesn't work out how we plan. But it's not failure. I just, to put a side story in here, one of my brilliant and just amazing realtors who was doing really well, she stopped working. She said it just wasn't for her, but, and she was one of my top producers. So, but what happened was I had to tell her, don't walk away with this as a failure. You planned to do it. It didn't work out, but you learned and gained so much from this. And now it's going to help you to, whatever you do next. So when things change, we have to kind of pull ourselves together and do what we need to do to get to the next level. And, that's just how life goes. And I am a planner. I try to plan as much as I can. But sometimes it doesn't work out. So in regards to goal writing, so goal writing is so important to me. I think I mentioned it earlier that me and my friends, we have been doing goal writing since we were young, didn't even know what we were writing. We just knew that we would put pen to paper on what we wanted to accomplish that semester, that month, the year in college. So, and then I've heard about 8 to 10 of the most successful people have at some point attributed some or most of all, in some cases, all of their success really to the habit and process of writing down goals. So for me now, it's really the process of gaining clarity in what I want to do in life by committing it to pen and paper. but then doing the steps to make those goals become reality. So it's actually pretty powerful. I've seen it manifest itself in a lot of success in people's lives. Um, so some things I would like to share with you, since we are talking about goals, the reason I write goals, and hopefully people who are on will write these down, because these are the reasons why goals can help your life be more successful or help your career, whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to grow in. So number one, clarity. So writing out goals, putting pen to paper, it helps you focus on things that are tangible and specific. Secondly, motivation. So many of the things we do in life that are going to help us succeed are not always fun. And sometimes we simply just don't do them because we're not motivated to do them. So writing goals, for me anyway, it takes the emphasis off the activity and puts more focus on the end reward, which is the goal that you wrote. Thirdly, progression and measurement. So the more you succeed in your goals, the more you progress in a specific area of your life. Once you see that you can achieve your goals and succeed in specific milestones, it will just encourage and inspire you to do more. So once you achieve a goal, you write another goal, and you just keep setting larger goals. So for instance, if your goal would be, if your goal is to do, like, I don't know, 10 push-ups every morning or every night, in a week or two, hopefully, you would have succeeded in that goal, fulfilled that goal. So the next week you just go to 15. So and that's just a small example, but you just kind of push yourself to go higher and higher. And that's usually what goals are. You achieve one, then you set another one. And lastly, why I write goals is that you can't, I'm very celebratory. So once you achieve a goal, you celebrate. You know, once you reach a milestone or a goal, you treat yourself. So it could be, let's say, if you did 15 push-ups every night, maybe at the end of the week, you treat yourself to an ice cream, you know, something fun, a book. For me, it'd probably be a new purse. So, so just, you know, something to treat yourself with and just to celebrate that you made your goals. But I feel like one of the best things about writing goals is that it definitely gives discipline. And this is why I made my kids start writing goals when they were little, because discipline is one of those traits that spill over into all facets of your life. And I used to tell my kids, and I reference my kids a lot because that's, you know, I had full dominion over them at one point. I used to make them do things that they probably didn't want to do, but now I think they're pretty happy that I made them do those activities. So I used to say, you could have two athletes that have the same talent, but the one who gets up every day and works hard and pushes themselves, you know, gets rest, eats healthy, and disciplines themselves will be the better of the two. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I've never heard such a comprehensive method of setting goals. I think you definitely take it so much further, and you're so intentional with each step in that process, especially the celebration, because you get to celebrate, and that the motivation getting there. Once you reach the celebration, you're like, wow, now I'm even motivated to continue setting goals and to continue getting there. And I love what you mentioned about like the purpose of setting goals is so that like you are more focused on that as opposed to the activity you might not want to do. So then once again, that continues motivating you, continues driving you towards what you hope to achieve. So I love everything about that. That was definitely something that I'm going to take into consideration in my own personal life. So thank you so much for sharing that and how that builds discipline. So when did you first start setting goals? And can you provide a few examples of some of your first goals?
So like I said, when I was younger, we would write, I forget what we used to call them. We used to call them like our dream list or something. And when I say younger, I mean, I was a student at UConn. When I got to UConn, you know, like I said, it was a group of us who really pushed each other, and we would come up with these things that we would just do that would help us get along in life, I should say. So we used to call like a dream list, like what did we want to do for the semester, so like for some, it would have been pledged Greek life, and then we would write down what we needed to do that. So for instance, talk to this sister, meet this person. We would have a big goal, but then break it down in smaller goals. So really since then, and then when I actually met my husband, who is actually 10 years older than me, he had already been writing goals for his career. And we kind of started doing them together. I remember once he asked me, what do you want to see? What do you want to see our marriage being in a few years? Or where do you want to see our relationship, or something to that effect? And I remember we wrote our goals. Mine, of course, I was like 22. So I was like, new Louis bag, new, new Prada shoes, new, and his was completely different, but we did have some that overlapped. So we were able to push each other. So yeah, it really is a significant part of my planning and my daily activities, actually.
I think you also factor in like how young you were and where you were in your life, and kind of reflecting on the fact that goals can change based on where you are, and that maybe they're not always the same goals. So where did you learn how to set those goals? Was it those conversations with your husband where you were able to learn how to set goals and adjust those a bit?
Yeah, it was really with him, and just kind of having a little plan, but it really became honed or crafted when I got a business coach. And I never told her. My first coach was a woman. I had two subsequent coaches after that. One was a male. But I never told her that I was like big on goal writing. Our first meeting, she's like, I really want you to really start writing goals. And she kind of helped me talk about how to write goals. And, one thing I'll share with you, and has really been super helpful in my life, my kids' life, my family, my staff, my team, everyone that I kind of lead over, my mentees, I always have them write goals in 5 parts of their life. So the first one, and hopefully you guys can write this down, like the first one would be spiritual. So I would write a goal, and let me even before I even say that, let me even back up. I write larger goals, and then I break them down in quarterly goals. So at the end of December, I usually take a day or two to write out what I want to do for the following year. So I have these large goals, and they could be like go to Spain, have my son graduate or something to that effect. But then quarterly, I write out smaller goals on how I'm going to get to that larger goal. So getting back to how that looks like, how it shows up for me on pen and paper, is the 5 categories. So the first one, whether it be a larger or smaller goal, it is spiritual. So I start with a spiritual goal. And again, I'll just talk about myself. So that could be like, I'm going to go to Sunday school 3 times a month. And my Sunday school starts at 7:45. So that's like a god awful time in the morning on a Sunday. So it has to be a goal. Or it'll be something like, I'm going to read the Bible 2 days a week, or I'm going to pray at noon, something to that effect. For other people, spirituality, is what connects you to the outside world, or your inner self, really connects your inner self, and how it shows up with you navigating the outside world. So for some, it could be yoga. I'm going to do yoga every morning. So some, it could be reading the Quran every day. So spirituality, I usually write that first and focus on that. My second category would be personal, because I feel like I can't be good for myself or anyone if my physical and mental personal self is not right. So for personal, it could be like, oh, I'm going to ride my bike 3 times a week to keep myself healthy. I'm going to, hopefully everyone's 21 over here, but I'm not going to drink red wine so much. I cut down on the red wine. So things like that will, so that'll show up in my personal. For someone else, it could be, I don't know, meeting new friends. I'm going to meet 2 new friends this semester. So that's number 2. Number 3 would be probably family would come next. So that could be something as specific as make sure I call mom every day or call home 3 times a week. For me, it may show up like, oh, just have dinner, a sit down dinner with my husband 2 days a week. I know that sounds crazy, but we're all on the go so much. So have a sit down dinner with my husband 2 days a week and focus on him. Don't talk about me. Focus on what he's doing. So that, something like that is crazy. We have to write these things down, but this is how I navigate my life. And then 4th would be probably financial. What do I want to accomplish in my financial goals this year? Am I saving for a trip? Am I saving for retirement? When I was younger, it would be like save $10 a week. I mean, when I was just starting my business, because money was so tight, maybe save $10 a month, $50 a month, $10 a week or so. So whatever that looks like for you. When my kids were little, it was like $2 a week. And then lastly, for me, it would be business. So business can be business, career, or academics. So for me, I would have like my business goals. Am I going to hire new staff? Am I going to get new marketing ideas? And how am I going to break that down in quarters throughout the year to get those goals completed by the end of the year? So I know that was a mouthful, but that's really, and you'd be surprised when you actually achieve those goals, how next year you have an even bigger goal. So, but you have to read your goals constantly. You can't just like write them down and then put them away and never look at them again. That's not going to help.
Yeah, no, thank you. I was taking notes because it was so impactful and like so practical. And I think so helpful for anyone to apply within any area of their life based on where they are currently. And I love everything you mentioned about like breaking it down quarterly, because sometimes we might have like a major goal and not be sure how to get there. So I think breaking it down and being more specific into these different 5 areas make it more realistic and make you feel like you're doing more to get there, and it's all a part of the journey, your individual journey, because your goals won't be the same as someone else's. And I think that's okay, because it's where you are in life. So you mentioned like when you were beginning in your business, you had very small goals. So what circumstances led to you deciding to open your own real estate firm, and was that always your goal?
Well, it was probably my goal to open my own real estate firm after I was in real estate for about maybe 4 years, and I realized how much I loved it. And, this is probably something I want to do until retirement. So I knew, my broker. So let me just back up. I was in real estate for about 14 years. And at that point, I figured my broker was going to either retire, my broker owner at the time, I figured she was either going to retire or give her business to someone else. And she approached me on taking over her business. So I figured I better get my broker's license, because in Connecticut, to practice real estate, you need a realtor's license. But to own a real estate company, you need a broker's license. So I said, I better get my broker's license to be in a position to take over her business or start my own. So I just felt certain things happen, and it just felt like I was meant to start my own business. So that's kind of how that happened. But yeah, it was one of my larger goals. I really, and when I started it, my intention was to maybe have 1 or 2 realtors, because I always want to be a working realtor or working broker now. I don't want to be a manager or a supervisor, although I do love that now. not the details of it, but just seeing my realtors like win at life and at their career, and just how we're all there helping each other. I do love that. But I always wanted to work, so I didn't want to sit in the office all day. So, but when my company kept growing, and it kind of grew exponentially. I mean, when you say in 4 years, I've had probably my highest has been 10 realtors, which is about where we are now. That's a lot. So, you know, I've had to turn down some people too. So it's been a little crazy with that. But yeah, so my goal was to maybe have one or two realtors, and then things changed. I had to pivot and try to figure out how I was going to bring these new people in and still train them the way I thought they should be trained, and still work with their different personalities, but still get them to be successful. So, yep.
Yeah, so it sounds like you saw an opportunity and you put yourself in a position to be able to take advantage of that when it was presented to you. So when your previous broker retired or left the industry, you had your license. So you definitely took steps along the way to make sure that you could seize the moment when it arrived. So you also just mentioned pivoting a little bit. So what were some of the most significant pivots in your professional career, and why did you feel like you needed to pivot during those times?
Well, you know, pivoting usually to me means maybe it wasn't something you planned, but you had to go with it. And, I always say write goals, but sometimes you can write goals. And then sometimes even the best plan, best intentions can go awry because life happens. You wanted to do this and you were doing well at this, and then this happened. And this actually just happened to one of my good friends. I have a friend who her life goal, so her life goal, and her and I talk about writing goals all the time, but her life goal was she's a little bit younger than me, but her life goal is to retire to her native West Indian island. And that's always been her goal, I should say, for the last 5 years or so. So she was doing really well funding her financial goals and getting to her larger goal. And she was doing hair. She was doing like making high-end celebrity wigs and doing all kinds of uh, hairstyles for her clients. And she was doing really well at it. And, her goal was to, again, bring her business from New York to the West Coast and then eventually to her island. So anyway, but then all of a sudden, arthritis set into her fingers. Like it wasn't even gradual. It was like boom, like within a few months, she couldn't even move her fingers. So now she has to pivot. Her end goal is still the same, but now she has to do something else and she has to go to plan B. And sometimes, so I'm really proud of her. Getting back to her, I'm really proud of her. She's doing her plan B, but this was totally, I mean, who would have thought this would happen? It's totally and completely unexpected. So, life will do that to you. And I've had times, like I said, when I was starting my career at Allstate, I had no idea I was going to I was on the fast track. You couldn't tell me anything. And then all of a sudden I get pregnant with twins within a few months of working. It was kind of crazy, and I didn't think I would stay home. I was a few months of taking care of my kids. And I decided at that point to suspend my career. So I had to make the heart-wrenching decision to be a full-time mom. And I say heart-wrenching because, as career women, sometimes we're torn between our careers and our family, our kids. And, I don't care what anyone says, it's really, really hard to do both. Sometimes one will suffer and the other one will suffer and it'll flip flop and, you're doing great here, then this is suffering. So it's really a balancing act. But anyway, I had to decide whether I was going to go back to work, clock in, working 9 to 5, traveling back and forth to different cities. And, how is that going to look like? So I had to make the heart-wrenching decision to stay. I didn't have to, I chose to stay at home. And then I had my third child and I wound up being home for 7 years. Now, when I was ready to go back to work, I thought, oh my God, how difficult is this going to be to transition back to work with kids who I've been home with? It's a transition for me and a transition for them. Um, so, I had to pivot again and say, maybe this is not what I want to do. I always wanted to be in corporate America. I love working with people. I love making things grow. I love watching the growth of different things or different projects. But now it's like, okay, I need to do something else. And my values changed at that point because I knew I couldn't be working 9 to 5 when my baby's home sick. So, that's how I got into real estate. So yeah, I had to switch things around. Now my end goals are still the same. I still want to retire. I still wanted my kids to do certain things, but I had to change it. So, and that happens quite a lot. I can think of a few other times in my life where I had these plans and, all of a sudden things changed that were out of my control. So we just regrouped. So yeah, my business mentor, her name is Joanne Price, and she's the owner of Fairview Capitals, extremely successful woman. And she always taught me to fix it first and fall apart later. So, so when I think about pivoting, I think about, oh shoot, things have changed. I gotta go with it, and then I'll mourn it and be crying later. So yeah, yep.
Yeah, but I mean, and like you mentioned, like it was definitely a heart-wrenching decision, but ultimately this is where it brought you. So you were able to still keep your goals and your ultimate goal of retiring, like in hindsight, and still work towards that. But that pivot was almost necessary for you to do something different and for you to adjust to the way your values changed and what was important to you. So I think, thank you so much for sharing that anecdote, especially about your friend as well and her experience. I think that's very inspiring for any student who's like, they want a specific goal, or any person who has a goal and is working towards something, but they get knocked down because life absolutely will happen. It keeps happening. We are in a pandemic, which no one anticipated, and everyone had to pivot. So absolutely. It's so
And
important.
for kids, and if I can just add, don't be afraid to do different things. Just because, like I told you about my realtor who just resigned. Now, she always wanted to be a realtor. As far as she was my intern when she was a student at UConn. And when she interviewed to be my intern, she said, I want to be a realtor. It's been like everything I wanted to do since I was young. So she picked a real estate major at UConn. And, when she was telling me, she was so nervous telling me she was resigning. And I just said, listen, you tried it, it didn't work. It's not that you failed, it just wasn't meant for you. And sometimes so think about it, we ask our kids and young students to pick something they want to do, pick a major in school at the age of 16 and 17 or 18 of what you want to do for the rest of your life. And that's just crazy. My daughter was at UConn. She changed her major like 4 times. I was about to kill her. And but I understood, we're finding our way. So if you do get out of school and you spend all this gobs of money and you're in debt, and now you did something that you thought you wanted to do, but you realize it wasn't for you, it's okay to change. It really is. It's okay to explore different things. I see a lot of young people start their first year or two and they're like, I hate this. I hate this. Their first year or two in working. And I'm like, do something different. Life is too short. And I used to tell my kids all the time, it's better to leave early than overstay. So, yeah.
That's solid advice. I also changed my major 4 or 5 times. So
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
But I ended up on sociology just like you. So,
okay, good.
So yes, very much same way. Always changing my major. But that definitely helps me feel more secure in my decision to do so, because once again, it got me here doing work that I enjoy and having a conversation with you. So pivoting worked out for me also.
Awesome.
So setting goals is one thing, but following through on them is a completely different thing. So what advice do you have for maintaining momentum towards your goals? So I know you mentioned setting them up into quarterly goals. What are some other pieces of advice you might have for maintaining that momentum?
So you can even break your quarterly goals into monthly and daily goals so that you're constantly on that grind of achieving your goals. So that's one thing I would suggest, so your daily goals may show up as a to-do list, but you have to review them, to keep the momentum. Two things you have to do with goals. Well, three things. First of all, you have to write them down. That's to start with. Secondly, you have to constantly look at them. And sometimes you may have written a goal and you realize, okay, maybe this is not what I thought. That's okay. Scratch it out, continue with the other goals or write a new goal. But you have to constantly review them and making sure you're on track. And that just can be something as simple. Every night before you go to bed, read your goals, or when you wake up in the morning, read your goals. But get in the habit of reading your goals, even if you committed them to memory. Just keep looking at them and checking them off when you've achieved them. And then lastly, I think is having accountability. And that I think the best way to have accountability is have somebody else involved. At least that works for me. So I had a business coach. I share with you, I have my friends, then I have my husband, then I have a business coach. Now I have a business mentor. So, those people ask me, what do I want to do? And I share my goals with them on paper. And then they keep me accountable. Well, did you do this? And I know in my mind, I'm going to see my business mentor once a month. And I'm like, she's not fooling with me. And she's going to say, did you do this? And I'm like, I don't want to waste her time. So that's actually a motivation for me. So yeah, so I think just revisiting them, constantly reworking them, and then just having accountability, someone to help you stay on task.
Yeah, because we don't have to do this life alone. So sometimes we do need that community to reinforce that and to also keep us moving along on our own journeys.
Absolutely.
So I have one final question for
Sure.
you. So what is your advice for someone who doesn't know what their goals are?
So I would just really think about what you want to do with your life, what you want to do with your year, how you want to see your next month, what you want your next month to look like. And, just start really thinking about that and writing things down and just jotting things down in no particular order, like brainstorming. And then kind of pulling out where you see yourself and what you can do to get there. And then that's just really how the goals develop. So, so for some, it really is hard. It's just too abstract, or I don't know what. I have realtors in my office who they're like, what? When they first come, they're like, I don't know, and they're very successful in their own right. But I'm like, you can get to another level. And they always thank me. Oh my God, you don't know how this has helped me. My life has changed, and we always focus on goals for business and academics, career, I should say. But there's other aspects in your life that you have to balance out and continue to grow as well. You don't want to be this huge business person or career person that you did everything, but then your family fell apart because you were so busy climbing the ladder, you left them behind, or you got sick because you didn't take care of yourself. So having those 5 categories, and you can even make up your own, is at least a good place to start. And I think that's just kind of a holistic way to grow, to keep yourself balanced and continue to grow. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. Helpful for me to start off from that. And kind of expand out. And as you were talking, I was like, that's just like the 5 goals you meant. You're like, yes, the 5 aspects. And I was like, perfect. It's all connected. And it all goes together. So thank you so much for sharing all of that specifically about your journey and your advice. So now we'll shift into the Q&A from the students. So we do have a question. So what would you advice for goals for a divorcee who finds herself working too many hours?
Oh, wow. Ooh, that's like some serious counseling that, well, I can say this for sure. I live with my father. My mom divorced him, and she was a single divorcee who worked a lot of hours. I don't know if my mom ever wrote goals. I know she wrote things down a lot, but I would just go back to what I would suggest to her at that time and to whoever asked the question is, again, go back to those 5 categories. If you're working a lot of hours, you have to somehow fit in having your family and taking care of your kids. I think that was the question. How do you spend more time with your family? So that may say if you get one day off, instead of doing some cleaning, because that's, your kids will never remember how clean their house was, but they'll always remember the memories that you had with them. So, take an hour and go to the library, go get some ice cream, things that aren't expensive. But the point is, you got to fit it in, And sometimes you may even have to cut 1 hour of work or something. We as parents, we sacrifice. We sacrifice so that our family and our kids will be whole and well. And, we just try to do the best we can. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think those 5 aspects can apply, like whether the children are in the home or not, it's still the same format. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I do. I mean, yeah, they can, it can, those 5 goals and 5 categories that I said, they can be adjusted to fit anyone in any situation. Because as I said, I've had kids from different ethnicities. I've had clients, I've had team members who have tailored those goals to fit their life.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that those 5 aspects or categories can also change too, based on who the individual
Yep,
is.
exactly. Yep, because you could go from having academic goals to now having career goals. So,
Gotcha. In the chat, Hillary just asked if we can repeat the 5 categories. Oh yeah, perfect. Thank you, Lisa. She's answered that question for us.
thank you, Lisa, for paying attention. I talk a lot, so I appreciate that. Someone's listening.
Lisa's always on it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how did the topic of goal setting come up within your friend group initially? So when you were in college, I know you mentioned that you all didn't necessarily know what you were doing. You just decided to start writing on this subject because this person's mostly heard about goals as an individual process versus a group process.
So I can recall just being in our dorm rooms, we were just really ambitious. And there were a couple of us who weren't as ambitious. And we actually kind of helped them along. And, we rubbed off on them in good ways and they rubbed off on us in good ways. But we would go to they used to call them the dining halls. I don't know what they call them now, probably like restaurants. But we used to go to the dining halls and just write down, what are we going to do this month? And we had fun goals in there too. We was like, we definitely going to Huskies twice a month. That's going to be our goal. So, and, just what we wanted to do, we would have things like change our major. But it would just be us collectively talking and not in a serious format, kind of just, we all took out pencil and paper and decided what we were going to do. And then also it would come up to what you could do to help me get there. So, my roommate would be like, well, you can help me get up when I don't feel like getting up, that kind of thing. So it was really just, it just kind of happened.
Yeah, kind of fostering that environment of accountability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So our next question is, how do you navigate conflict between personal and career goals?
I always go, this is not what I'm telling everyone else to go. I tend to go with career. I tend to go with career until I realize I'm getting too far in and I need to pull back because now I don't feel good. I'm tired. I got the flu. I'm sick. And then I start really getting focused back on those personal goals. Your goals are always going to be in conflict with each other because there's always going to be something going on. But that's why you write 1 or 2 goals in each category and you focus on all of them. So, when you start getting out of balance and more in career, your body, it will show up in your body. But when you start, taking too much time for work, it'll show up in for yourself. Like, for instance, when after COVID, I went on way too many trips already now because my husband's like, well, how are you going to afford it? I'm like, I'm going to figure it out because I need to get out of here. But then it showed up, like my clients like, oh, you're going again? And even though I had people covering for me, it's starting to get out of balance. So now I got to rein myself in, because I have this extreme personality. And that's why those 5 facets also keep me grounded and balanced. So yeah, it's because it's always going to be conflict. One is always going to dominate the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're one person. So maybe it might even be helpful to like allocate a certain percentage towards one versus the other too.
Yep, that's excellent advice.
Okay, so this also one more question from a student said, what you said about goal changing really stood out to me because I've changed my major twice already and feel like I'm changing directions too often. You said this isn't necessarily bad, but do you think it could prevent me from reaching my goals?
Ooh, I would have to have a more one-on-one conversation to see, why you're changing your goals so much. Is it that you're starting something? And I don't know if this person is like this, but there's some people who start one thing, keep starting things and doing new things, but don't particularly finish what they started. So that's a whole different conversation. But as I said, there's people who start things and realize, I thought I wanted to do this, but I realized it's not what I wanted to do, so, it's like a bad boyfriend or girlfriend. You get out before you overstay your welcome. So, so that is one thing. And it's okay to do that. Sometimes you have to try different things. There's so many people I'm around that I've cultivated relationships with over the years that are business partners. And they have done and failed at so many things before they found what they wanted to do. It's just the way life is. And as you grow into yourself and your career, your families, traveling, your values will change. So the things that your goals will change. So what was important to you yesterday, next week may be not that important to you now because you're growing. So I think the key is to just keep trying different things, but make sure you got to really evaluate and say, am I trying these things because I didn't like the other thing, or am I just someone who it's hard for me to commit to one thing and finish one thing? So.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to follow up by asking, completely slipped my mind. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I was going to follow up by asking, like, how do you know if you've stayed too long, or how do you know if you've overstayed? But I think you've kind of like mentioned reevaluating, like approaching it from the standpoint of what are your values, and then using that to reevaluate if it's a situation where you truly have a lack of commitment, or if it's just not a good fit for you. Would you say that's correct?
I would say that's correct. For me, I'm very in tune, especially at my age now, into my internal self. Like, I am really trusting my intuition now. And that really starts at a young age. When you know something's not right, you know something's not right. So sometimes, again, for me, I have this, I'm not going to give up. You're not going to make me quit. I'm not going to end because you want me to end. But sometimes, you have to decide this is probably not a good idea, and you'll feel it inside. And then I'll start like analyzing things. Well, I'm feeling this way because that is not right. And, this is not right. And now I'm like, okay, I've kind of come to the conclusion that I need to get out of here. And whatever that means, or whatever I'm in that's not working. And that shows up in everything. Clients, I don't have to fire too many clients. And thank you, God, I don't think I ever been fired. I don't ever remember. But sometimes I'm like, okay, this is not working. Before I got married, relationships, I'm like, not working. Friendships now, sometimes things are just meant to be there for a season. And it's okay when they end. It's okay. It's just the way life is. So I think I answered your question. I tend to. digress.
No, you answered it. You answered it well. Going back to fix it first and fall apart later.
That's right. Oh, Joanne will be happy that you said that.
I sure hope so. So when you write down your goals, do you use any specific goal setting worksheet or planners, or do you kind of categorize it by those 5 aspects and go from there?
I usually have a book, and I've had it for years, and I just write them in there, and it's like a journal, but I could see what I did in 2017 and where I'm now in 2019 or 2021. So it's almost like a journal of where I've come from. Sadly, some of the goals I wrote in 2017, like lose 10 pounds, is still showing up in 2021. So that's also when you're looking and saying, okay, some things are just not working here. So now we need to regroup. Now I've changed it to not so much lose the weight, just do the activities that will lose the weight. So yeah, so I don't have, so my son, he has an Excel sheet about his goals. I just listen, write it down on scrap paper when I'm out at a park or something, even anytime. And then I transpose them to that little book. It's just, I don't have it in front of me. It's just a little what do you call that? Composition book.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing those different methods. That's helpful to know.
And you can put them in your phone under notes, you can, but the key is when I write them, I look at my book often. I used to just put them up in front of me, but then it's too much paper everywhere. But if you have a few strong goals, put them in your bathroom so that you see them every day when you wake up. You don't want to have paper everywhere. I don't know if you want to have that, but a few things that are important to you. Just have them in plain visible sight.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So what is a business coach, and would you recommend one?
Yes, and it depends. So, like I said, I had a business coach that helped me I was in real estate for a couple of years, and I did pretty well starting out, but I went to this seminar and I wound up getting a coach kind of spontaneously, and it was very expensive. But my income grew like 50,000 from that coach in 1 year. It's just like unbelievable. So that was like 3 or 4 years into the business, and I kept a coach for years until I felt like it really, I could probably do most of this on my own and save the money. And then it transitioned to a mentor. So I got a mentor who's not really a coach, but just more of a mentor. And, I don't pay her. She's just someone who pours into my life. In fact, I have a handful of mentors that I can talk to when things seem a little crazy. But yeah, and it depends on where you are in life. Coaching can be very pricey. So, the money needs to be there to invest. But I think early on whether it's worth it or not. And then sometimes you have to get a few coaches till you get the right one. So yeah, I do, as a business person, I do really, especially an entrepreneur, I do really encourage people to get coaches. But I also, for someone just starting out in their career or a student, I really encourage you to get a mentor. Get someone outside of school doing what you think you want to do, and just ask them to be your mentor. I mean, a lot of kids have them because I'm some kids' mentors and my friends are, but a lot of kids don't. They don't have anything outside of what they see every day. And it's just so helpful to have someone in a position where you think you want to be or where you're trying to be, to talk to and guide you and listen to you. So I would definitely recommend that.
That's absolutely been a trend that we've seen across almost every single one of our advice and perspective sessions this summer. Is every alumni has said, get a mentor, and that mentorship is so valuable. So definitely reinforces that notion. Okay, so we're coming up on the end of our time together. So we do have one final question for you. So it is so inspiring to hear that you work in a company with 8 women. So how did you prioritize creating such a diverse team as a leader in a not so diverse industry?
Well, I didn't set out to have all these women. And I didn't set out to have this much diversity. It just kind of happened. But it was important to me. So I wouldn't turn people away because they're not diverse or anything. They don't fit in the categories of being, in the diversity category. But I think what you put out is what you get. So I put out energy that I am accepting. It's really hard. And you'll see when you get out there, especially if you work in a area where it's male, white woman dominated. It's really important to have allies who can say, how are you doing? How's it going out there? And I have that dialogue with my agents all the time, like how are things going with your clients? And a lot of times that will show up in race, that will show up with conversations of race. They thought they were discriminated against. Another agent said something that was inappropriate. So I think just having that energy, that you attract what you put out. So I'm always fostering an atmosphere of, are you okay? And if you're not, this is what we want to do to get you okay. So a couple of my realtors were referred by realtors already in my office. So that has been helpful. And also I have 2, 3 realtors who are my clients. They got their realtor's license and then they became realtors. So and that happens too.
They really just enjoyed working with you. Didn't want to stop.
Yeah, they all say now I made it look too easy. One of them said, what in the heck did you get me into? So, yeah.
Well, that's a great note to end off on. So thank you so much for sharing your extremely valuable advice. I know I definitely myself am going to take in and utilize some of the methods you mentioned today. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us.
It has been my absolute pleasure. So I don't know if you want to put my email out there if anyone has a question or I can ever help them.
Okay.
I'll definitely respond.
Okay, that was actually going to be my last question is if we'd like to stay in touch with you, how could we do that? So
sure.
If you
my
feel
email or my cell phone is the best way. So.
Okay, all right, we'll put that in the chat in a second. So thank you so much for that. So if all of you would like to watch previous sessions, Lisa just put that link in the chat. Also, if you would like to find a mentor, such as Shanyelle mentioned, you can join the Husky Mentor Network, which is a platform where UConn alumni want to give advice to UConn students, and they're already in there for you. You can go in and request an appointment with any alumni who falls in alignment with what you are seeking for in a mentor. So that's another great resource. And also feel free to schedule a career coaching appointment to discuss your specific career journey if you have some questions or if you are wondering how you can move closer towards your goals. So once again, thank you for being here with us today, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.